I'm attorney Mark Nicholson from the Law Office of Mark Nicholson, also known as the Battery Man. And I'm here to talk about day number 8 of the Jonathan Majors jury trial. And I'm wearing Dr. Strange because he is the master of the mystical arts. And there were some strange things that were going on today. Listen, the prosecution said repeatedly during opening statement that the cab driver who testified today would say that Miss Jabari was thrown into the car like a football. Also, the defense said that he would testify that she was a psycho girl, acting like a psycho girl. That's what they said. Now, jurors are told that defense and prosecution's statements during opening statement and closing argument are not evidence. They are not supposed to consider that as evidence. That is the law. And jurors are instructed on that. So they know this, but you can get in trouble by the jurors if you say things and you don't deliver. And that's what appeared to happen today from the people from the state of New York when they said in their opening that she was thrown in the car like a football. But the statement from the cab driver did not line up with that. It was strange. It was mystical for the defense. The cab driver said that he, Mr. Majors, was not doing anything. Not doing anything. So right there, that blows out the prosecution's case. This is their witness. The witness that was in the car, the driver, the people have been waiting to hear from him. And they actually talked to him like either the day before and had to let the defense know that the things he's saying are exculpatory or Brady. The Supreme Court case, Brady versus Maryland, that talks about the prosecution has to disclose exculpatory, favorable evidence to the defense. The prosecution asked him, did he see Miss Jabari get hit by the defendant? And he said that she was doing everything. Once again, apparently really not what the prosecutor expected to happen with this man's testimony. Stunning. He was asked once again, did you see the defendant hit Miss Jabari? And the driver said many things were happening, and I had the feeling the girl hit the boy. He said he had the feeling the girl hit the boy. Now, the judge, on several occasions, had to admonish the witness, had to remind him that he's only allowed to testify to what is happening, what he actually saw, what he actually witnessed. That's what witnesses are supposed to do, not speculate on what they think happened or innuendo. So the judge said, you can only testify about what happened, what's happening, not what you think happened. At one point, the prosecution was so frustrated that when the cab driver said that he, Mr. Majors, was trying to get rid of her, get away from her, the prosecution, to their own witness, had to say, please keep your opinions to yourself. This was very strange testimony for the prosecution. It was so strange that the defense, there were some times that they were grinning and even laughed when they were hearing the testimony of this witness. I've been in trials, and sometimes things do happen that cause you to chuckle or laugh. And it's not professional, it's not proper, but we're all human. And this seems to be like one of those times. When he said that he was trying to, when the cab driver said he was trying to get rid of her, there were even people in the front row that obviously were supporting Jonathan Majors that were seated behind him. They even giggled and laughed a little bit because it would seem so ridiculous that they would have this witness on the witness stand testifying against Mr. Majors, but he was really testifying for Mr. Majors. The driver even said that Mr. Majors said, leave me alone. I have to go. He was trying to get rid of her, and he was repeating things that Mr. Majors said. He was not doing anything. She was doing everything. Now, he did say that Mr. Majors was trying to throw her in the car. Basically, A different context than what was presented before, where it makes like he was just trying to throw her in the car. This context means that he was trying to throw her in the car, push her in the car so he could leave and she could stay in the car and he could get away from her. Leave me alone. I have to go. Trying to push her in the car, get her in the car so he could get away, so he could make the escape. And that lines up with the physical evidence as he's trying to leave and she is going after him. And he said this because Ms. Jabari was attempting to follow him out of the car. That it was, she tried to go after him. This is what the evidence shows. This is what the video shows. The cab driver is saying what the video shows. He said also he being Mr. Majors, was trying to push her into the car. Eventually, both people left. This testimony was not favorable for the prosecution. There was no testimony of him hitting her. Also, an interesting thing happened because the medical expert testified that treated Miss Jabari. And on direct examination by the prosecutor, he said that her injuries were consistent with her narrative, basically consistent with what she claims had happened. Well, what does she claim happened? How does he know what she claimed happened? Because the story she's telling in court is not the same story she told to them when she went to the hospital. So that means that someone gave the doctor the information. And to highlight that point, once again, very strange, on cross-examination, he says they were inconsistent with having been caused by someone twisting her finger. So once he says that was consistent with what she described, and another one he's saying is inconsistent to a certain degree with what she described. So he did say it is consistent with someone being hit in the ear or hit with a sharp object. And what do we know from the video in the club? She bumped her head like on that DJ booth. Maybe that was a sharp object, the corner of the DJ booth, cutting her head. She could have, when she was in the closet, collapsed and fell. She could have broken her finger when she was trying to hit Mr. Majors. The witness, the cab driver, said there was no blood in the car. The doctor said she didn't have cauliflower ear, which some people know when you have cauliflower, it means you've been hit in the ear repeatedly, slapped in the ear repeatedly, some kind of trauma to the ear. The doctor also said that there was no evidence of some kind of scratches on her face, which once again, I mean, how do you hit somebody repeatedly and you scratch them right behind the ear, but there's no other scratches on her face? The point that some people have made in the comment section, and what I've thought about too with this drinking thing, is the doctor said she was at risk for alcohol abuse disorder. Basically, that's a fancy word for saying she was alcoholic. I do know that when you're alcoholic, you can have blackouts, you can fall, you can injure yourself, and you have no recollection of it. And you can want pain medication to help you through that when you're injured yourself. Apparently, Ms. Jabari has said that she had drank 3 to 4 alcoholic drinks a night and would have more than 6 in one setting. This is going right to the crux, right to the heart of the defense, that she is someone that is having trouble with alcohol, and she's blacking out, she's passing out, she's partying, and can't remember what was going on. And the doctor, often when they're state's witnesses, will do their best to try to help the prosecution, and they will say things to try to help the prosecution because they're a prosecution witness. They're often sometimes paid by the prosecution. This is their job. They don't sometimes testify for the defense. They all testify for the prosecution. And in this particular case, the prosecution had a witness, a doctor, that seemed really to testify not necessarily in favor of the defense, but it created doubt on what he said because, okay, it could be one thing, could have been fall, could have been injury that she got from someone. He just doesn't know. But what we do know is that she is someone that is suffering or a very high risk of alcoholism. Another thing that happened was the judge is allowing a expert on domestic violence to testify. Now, he's trying to limit the testimony of this expert by saying they can't talk about necessarily, battered spouse syndrome, battered wife syndrome, it used to be called. can't really go into saying that it's extremely rare for domestic violence, false allegations of domestic violence. So it's really limited, that testimony from this expert. Oftentimes, because the witness's testimony will be all over the place and they recant and things like that, the state loves to bring in some kind of expert to explain to the jury that, oh, yes, this is common behavior. Yes, they will act a certain way, and you should just excuse that behavior, that inconsistency, because she is a victim of domestic violence. And that's what they'll try to say. They will often try to have someone come in to say that to ease the jurors' minds when they have doubt. In this case, because the judge limited that testimony so much, I don't think that it's going to really relieve the people of the doubt, because they already know this. This is something that people already know. And the judge is kind of limiting them from trying to say that if you're a domestic violence victim, you do this and you do that, because people already know. Yes, if you're a domestic violence victim, you're probably going to be scared of that person. I mean, you don't need some expert to come in and say that, because this can also be seen as vouching, because you're bringing in a witness to say, hey, this is what this person did and this is why they did it, when the witness themselves are not really saying it. And you're bringing someone in to basically either repeat what the witness said or fill in these gaps, even though that person really wasn't there to be able to fill in these gaps. They're just using all these examples that may apply or may not apply to vouch for this witness. And it's called vouching. And the judge is really kind of limiting this vouching testimony. So I'm not as sure that this expert will have that much of an impact in this case. Another thing happened, which is the couple witnesses that were at the club testified. Those are some of the people you saw in the video at the club, outside the club. And they testified of not seeing any blood, of hugging. I think Chloe hugged Miss Jabari and did not get any blood. And she was wearing like a white shirt, didn't get any blood on her, didn't notice these injuries. And I find that to be strange, because there's two witnesses that were actually with her seconds after this alleged assault. And she's telling them a little bit about what happened, but she doesn't say, oh yeah, he hit me right here. Do you see any blood? Oh, my fingers hurt. He hit my hand. He squeezed my hand. He twisted my finger. Look at it. Does it look broke to you? I mean, if you're saying that you were just abused, it just seems a little strange that you don't get in there and talk about where you were abused. It really looks like these injuries happened after this incident. It really looks like the injuries happened probably when she was intoxicated, hit her head inside the club, went home, passed out, may have broke her finger when she fell. It seems like there's some other explanation about how she sustained those injuries, because after the incident, it didn't happen. Maybe she injured herself intentionally, but it could be these were unintentional injuries and she's trying to fill in the gap. And when I say unintentional injuries, it's because she was drunk, she passed out, she fell, whatever, and she's trying to fill in the gap about how did this stuff happen to her. So on this day of very strange testimony, it really goes to the defense. I really believe that reasonable doubt is created. I'm not sure what other witnesses the prosecution can put forth to try to fix this, but from what we've seen and heard so far, the answer is not guilty because of all this doubt. Now, things could change. Like I said, there's still, the defense has to put on their side of the case. And if Mr. Majors testifies and doesn't seem credible, loses it in cross-examination, the tide can turn. But this day here does seem to have went to the defense on a very strange day, at least from the prosecution side, of testimony. And that's your Nicholson Nugget of the day. Please be sure to like and subscribe.